Chapter 6, the development of congressional power. Our chapter objectives for Section 1, under Constitutional Powers, are to identify and explain the powers of Congress. Under Section 2, Investigations and Oversight, our objectives are to discuss occasions in which Congress has exercised its power to conduct investigations and practice legislative oversight. And last, for Section 3, the Congress and the President, our objectives are to analyze the dynamics in the relationship between the legislative and executive branches of the federal government. Section 1, Constitutional Powers. Constitutional provisions. The necessary and proper clause in the Constitution, also known as the Elastic Clause, enables Congress to expand its powers. Conflicting interpretations of this Elastic Clause are reflected in Supreme Court rulings about the power of Congress. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights limit the powers of Congress. Legislative powers. The power to levy taxes and appropriate money is one of the most important powers of Congress. Congress has the power to borrow money, coin money, make laws regarding bankruptcy, regulate foreign trade, and interstate commerce. Congress has important powers in foreign policy and national defense. For example, they approve treaties, declare war, maintain an army and a navy. Congress has the power over the naturalization of citizens and the admission of new states. Congress has the power to grant copyrights and patents, the power to establish federal courts and a post office. Non-legislative powers. If no presidential candidate has a majority of the electoral votes, the House of Representatives chooses the president from the top 3 candidates. If no candidate has a majority of electoral votes for vice president, the Senate chooses from the top 2 candidates. Congress has the power to settle problems arising from the death of candidates or the president's incapacity or resignation. Non-legislative powers. If no presidential candidate has a majority of the electoral votes, the House of Representatives chooses the president from the top 3 candidates. If no candidate has a majority of electoral votes for vice president, the Senate chooses from the top 2 candidates. Congress has the power to settle problems arising from the death of candidates or the president's incapacity or resignation. Congress has the power to remove officials of the executive or judicial branches from office by the process of impeachment. The Senate has the power to approve public officials appointed by the President. The Senate ratifies treaties between the United States and other nations. Congress shares with state legislatures the power to propose and ratify constitutional amendments. Section 2, Investigations and Oversight. The power to investigate. Standing committees or select committees of Congress investigate the conduct and ethics of government officials and members of Congress. Investigations have a variety of consequences that range from proposing new legislation to removing officials from office. Congressional investigations collect evidence, subpoena witnesses, and grant witnesses immunity, but they are not trials. Legislative oversight. Congress uses the power of legislative oversight to weigh how well the executive branch carries out the laws enacted by Congress. The Legislative Reorganization Acts of 1946 and 1970 require Congress to review and study how the laws under its responsibility are administered, applied, and executed. Realistically, Congress cannot effectively monitor every action of the executive branch. Congress uses legislative oversight to require executive agencies to submit reports of their activities. When they suspect wrongdoing, special investigations, or even the threat of such investigations, act as a strong deterrent to defying the intent of Congress. Section 3. Congress and the President. Cooperation and conflict. The members of Congress represent local, more narrow interests than the President. The checks and balances provided under the Constitution may cause conflict between the branches. Partisan differences often affect the relationship of Congress and the President. The members of Congress may serve longer than any president and might not cooperate with the President's timetable for enacting laws. The struggle for power. Throughout the nation's history, the balance of power has shifted back and forth between Congress and the President. Congress can limit or end emergency powers that it has granted the President. Congress has reduced the President's power in planning the budget and spending money that Congress has appropriated. The Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974 established permanent budget committees for each House, created the Congressional Budget Office, and limited the President's ability to impound funds. The Congressional Budget Office provides financial experts to help Congress increase its role in planning the budget. Congress no longer uses the legislative veto, but still seeks to ensure that the President carries out its intent in executing laws. In 1996, Congress authorized the line item veto, but in 1998, the Supreme Court said that it was unconstitutional. Now, the line item veto literally meant that the President could simply veto one line out of a bill that he didn't like. So if a bill passed both houses of Congress and got to the President's desk, the President had the option to only veto part of it, but accept most of it. Like I said, because that was found to be unconstitutional, that power is no longer a power that the President has. Now, presidents either have to accept a bill in its entirety or reject it in its entirety.